Khalil, statistician with the Statistics Division of FAO, and together with UNSD, I'm co-chairing this task team. So many thanks again to all the members that have sent their comments. We have tried to incorporate all comments in a new version of the technical note of the progress chart, which will be the main, let's say, object of today's meeting. So regarding to today's meeting, Fania is sharing the agenda on the screen. So you can see that we will have a first session where we will have an open discussion on the revised technical note. So to facilitate this discussion, UNSD will go through this revised technical note very quickly to show you, let's say, the main changes that we have made. And then we would also like to hear from you and have your feedbacks on the best mechanisms that we could adopt to validate the results of the progress chart assessment before dissemination with custodian agencies, and also identify areas for future work of this task team. And then, of course, we will have some space for any other business and closing remarks. So now I leave the floor to Pania for the introduction of the first session of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Aida. I'm just going to spend 5 minutes to go through most of the significant changes that we have done to the revised technical note. We have shared this revised note with you in an email last week, and I hope that you have had a chance to have a look at it and note down any major comments or feedback that you have on it. We are in the process of now, hopefully today, finalizing all these changes and revising this note so that we can implement the first version of this new note in the upcoming SG progress report for 2024. So UNSD is working to do the assessment for 2024 to be included in the SG's report this month. So that's the deadline that we're working towards. And after that, we will also use this technical note as a basis for progress assessment for our annual SDG report that will come out this year in late June. So the difference between the two assessments is that in the SG's report, the assessment is one paragraph on basically an overview of the progress or lack thereof of all the targets for the year, right? Plus one infographic. Usually we put a stack chart kind of showing for each goal, which targets are on track, which are not, which has made progress, and so on and so forth. And then in the second, more detailed publication, our annual SDG report, we have slightly more space to visualize the progress for all the 169 targets. So those are the main differences. I won't go through everything in this note, but I will focus specifically on what we have changed. And the first area that we did was on the categories of trend that we are using in this version of the technical note. The main difference is that last year we had 3 trends, and this year we have split the progress trend into 2, and we have also separated the stagnation from regression. So instead of 3 that we had last year, this year we're going to have 5. The main rationale of doing this is to make sure that the wide dispersion in the previously some progress trend is now slightly kind of more nuanced and separated into moderate progress and marginal progress. And previously we bundled together the stagnation and regression, but this year we're separating the two into 2 different trends. The caveat for this is that I already mentioned there are 2 main reports that we are including the global progress assessment in. Our intention is that in the SG's progress report, we will continue to only use 3 names for the trend. That is to say, on track or target met, some progress, but acceleration needed, and then the third trend, stagnation and regression. The rationale for that is number one, since this is the SDG's progress report, usually it gets quoted quite widely by the press, and we want to make sure that the communication on the assessment is as simple as possible and is somewhat consistent with last year. So having 3 trends helps that process along better than having 5, which can potentially cause some confusion. And secondly, also for purely logistical reason, the SDG progress report is a parliamentary report and it's produced in grayscale. There's no color in it. It would be very, very hard to visualize if we have 5 colors plus a gray for no data. So we decide to stick to 3 for the SDG report, but for our own glossy report, in which we have much more control on the design, we will work with the designer to effectively visualize the new 5 trends that we have implemented. We mentioned also in the technical note that even though at the global level, we are only doing the trend to target measure for our report, we still encourage custodian agencies and regional commissions to continue to also do other measurements of progress in addition to trends. So, I mean, some regional commissions do, in addition to trend, also current status. Some do distance to target, some do levels and so on. So we definitely want all of you to continue to use your methodology in addition to our own. Into the methodology itself, the main innovation here is that we add 1 step to the calculation. In the past, we basically impute the trend to the data series and then we start the aggregation. But this year, with the comment, very helpful comment from FAO, we have introduced a second step where we, after imputing the trend to the data series, we basically also insert those trends into a scoring function to normalize the value between 0 and 5. And the innovation here is to make sure that we have more distinction between data series that may have very wide array of values, but where previously we lumped them together into just basically 3 discrete values. Similar to last year also, we are going to only include data series that are the main data series for indicators in our assessment. That is to say that we basically make some value judgment on what to include and what not to include. And the main criterion for that is to pick data series that best represent the entire reference population that is mentioned in the text of Agenda 2030 itself. I think these steps, the first step, pretty much the same, the formula are the same as last year. The only difference here is that the cutoff points for the different categories of trends have changed slightly, right? The top trend remains the same, but the next 2 trends basically used to be the same last year, but now we find the middle point of that previous trend and split it into 2. And similarly, stagnation and regression was lumped together last year, but this year we split them into 2. So anything that is, worse than baseline becomes regression, and anything that is slightly better than baseline is now called stagnation. Same thing for series without 2030 target values. We basically split the thresholds of the second and third trend last year, and now basically we have 5 trends instead of 3. The top value, the top threshold, and the bottom threshold remain the same. And the key cutoff points between, for example, stagnation and progress and on track also remain the same. So because of that, hopefully when the results come out for the 2024 assessment, it's broadly comparable to last year. There won't be too many surprises. In fact, we have already run our model based on this new revised methodology, and we have seen some changes, some improvements in the on-track trend, and some minor changes in the other trends. So we're not going to have huge outliers in terms of results compared to last year. For example, last year, 15% of all targets were on track. This year, based on our preliminary calculation, it may increase to 90, subject to change, of course, because this is not all very final. But I think seeing some stability in the results gives us some comfort in making sure that the results are consistent with last year. Another thing that we have tried our best to reflect in the technical note is the different methods that are used by agencies and regional commissions on imputing 2030 target values to those series or indicators that do not have explicit 2030 target values. We have acknowledged that in the regional commissions, the champion area approach is used in a number of cases, and those have its own merits for regional assessments. However, for a couple of reasons, it will be quite challenging to adopt this approach for the global assessment, and we have tried to reflect that in here. And we also put a link to the champion area approach methodology in this technical note so that readers can go and check it out more. And I think another thing that we will include, and that is not already in this revised technical note, is to put links to the regional progress assessments themselves, and to advise readers that for detailed assessments on the regional progress, it's best to refer directly to the reports that are done by the regional commissions. We will still keep the prerogative of assigning some of the trends based on expert assessments from agencies. Based on our experience from last year and this year, the data from the global SDG database alone is enough to give us kind of assessment on about 103 or so targets, which means we are still missing 66. To try to close the gap as much as we can, we will refer to the submission from custodian agencies for the SG progress report and on the glossy report, and try to extract some of the expert assessment from those submissions to assign some of the trends to the missing targets. So this will be edited based on, this section will be edited based on the inputs that we get from custodian agencies from this year. The current text is based on the submissions from last year, so we're gonna change that. The second step, as I mentioned earlier, is the main innovation. After imputing the trend for each of the data series, we're going to put that trend into the scoring function to basically rescale the trend into a continuous value from 0 to 5. And the idea is to make sure that something that has a value of 0.5 and something that has a value of 0.95 are not treated equally, the same way they did in the last year's progress assessment methodology. Once that is done, we basically use these cutoff points to kind of assign them back again to the trend that they should be in. And we do the same thing for indicators without 2030 target values as well. The key difference is that this time we use the compound annual growth rate that is calculated instead of the kind of the gap between what has been achieved and the 2030 value and the baseline value for those indicators that do have 2030 values. So the detailed explanation is in the note. I won't go through it. For indicators without 2030 values, we have slightly different formulas for those theories where an increase in value is desirable and for those where a decrease is desirable. And then aggregation is pretty much similar last year. Once we have the continuous score between 0 and 5, we just used simple average to aggregate series score into indicator score. That is to say, if there are more than one series in an indicator, we basically add them up and divide by the number of series with the assumption that each series has equal weight for that indicator. And then to aggregate to the target level, we used the same rationale. If a target is represented by only one indicator, we will use the indicator score as the target score. But if there is more than one indicators in the assessment for one particular target, we average the indicator scores into the target score. And once that is done, we will basically assign a trend based on the mean score on this table. And for the glossy report, we will definitely work closely with the designer to see how we can best represent now 5 colors instead of 3. It's going to be a bit of a challenge, but we'll hopefully get expert opinions and help on how to make sure that we best do that. For those series indicators and targets that do not have either the data from the database or any supplementary assessment from the custodian agencies, very much similar to last year, we will assign an insufficient data label for that. And last but not least, based on your comments, this year what we will do is to include as an annex a list of all the data series and indicators that we include in the assessment. And that will give transparency to what's included and what's not, and will also give people an idea of where data is broadly available for which target and for which indicator and so on. That's all from me. I hope that that's clear. I look forward to the discussion on what we have done so far. Thanks, and back to you, Aida.
Thank you, Vanya. So now we can open the floor for questions or comments on the technical note that was shown. Okay, I hear Andres from Richard. Please go ahead.
Yeah, so thank you for sharing this and for getting this far. I really commend you guys for all the hard work. I think it's great that you guys are going ahead and you're still encouraging custodian agencies to still use their own progress tracking methodology. I think not in the preliminary analysis itself, but maybe when you are sharing it with custodians, maybe just remind them, because we've had that discussion in here, so we know that you're not discouraging them from using a different methodology, but when you do send it to them, just a note to tell them, hey, this is one approach. It's not the only approach, but this is one approach that we're going because we think it's consistent, comprehensive, all the stuff that you've already said before. I think it will be good when you're sending that, just to have that messaging there, because I think there might be some blowback if you don't include that. We know here, but we're not sure every custodian would be aware. Over.
Thank you. Yes, very good point. So are there other questions, comments? Also, if you have any doubts on what has been presented, we can clarify. All right. So maybe, Vanya, I have a quick question myself. So while you were showing the document, I didn't see the part related to the aggregation of the assessment at the target level. Maybe it was my mistake, but so you know that in the previous version of the technical note, there was a section on like, okay, how to aggregate from indicator level assessment to target level assessment or goal level assessment, no? So the discussion about data availability and okay, yes, sorry. Yeah, it's there. So there we also addressed the issue of the I think the minimum number of indicators, no, like the 50% of indicators under a target that would be required to perform aggregation, right?
Oh yeah, I may have missed that
Mhm.
part, so I apologize for that. I think that
Okay.
exists, right? It's an input from your end, and it's also basically the rules that we set for data submissions into the global SDG indicator, right? The rule of thumb usually is you should only have a global aggregate when you have data available for that series for at least 50% of the population and the countries that are covered by the series. So am I correct in assuming that you think we should explicitly state that that's the data availability threshold for the assessment? Or did I miss some of the text that you put into the revised?
No. It's fine. It's fine. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. To Richard, yes. The membership of this task team is much smaller than the 50 plus or so like custodian agencies that we usually work with for both the glossary report and now this progress assessment. So we'll make sure when we send out the draft assessment for validation and comments to put in that strong kind of disclaimer that this serves the purpose of the report we're producing and is not meant to replace much more detailed progress assessments, both for different regions and also for different themes, right? WHO is doing very detailed assessment on health, FAO on agriculture, and then we have regional commissions basically doing very detailed assessments for their own respective parts of the world. So we definitely will communicate that our report is not meant to basically replace anything else. It's just one of the many kind of versions of progress assessments that are done in the whole UN system. Thanks.
All right. So are there any comments? Maybe we can pass to the second session of this meeting. I think, Vanya, then we could move to the second part. So the second part.
If there are no more comments or questions, then we can move on. But if I do encourage you to help us go through the formula and basically the text in as much detail as you can. And if you caught anything or if there's anything that really doesn't make sense, please do, even after this meeting, send us your comments and feedbacks to our email. Thank you.
Okay, I see an hand raised, so maybe we have a comment or a question. Katrina, please. You're muted.
I'm sorry, can you see my hand?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I couldn't hear you. Yeah, thank you, colleagues, for this work. And just a small question before we are going. I'm sorry, I have issues with my camera. I don't know why. Maybe it's from laptop. About our comments. when we go through the document, should we provide comments on Annex 1 as well? Because I understand that not all custodian agencies are in the group. So, you know, it seems like you will get comments from some custodian agencies regarding their indicators, but you will not get comments from others.
Tanya, do you want to take this question?
Can I ask to clarify, Katerina, when you refer to comments on Annex 1, are you thinking about comments on it now or when we send out the initial results to the custodian agencies for feedback and validation? Which stage of comment are you referring to?
I'm just looked at the list of indicators and, you know, data series that
Yes.
have been selected, and definitely, yeah, I want to go deeper. But in general, I think that maybe UNEP will have some comments on this list of indicators. So my question is, should I provide these comments, you know, after the meeting, for example, or you're planning to have one more round of consultations with all custodian agencies just to get comments for these indicators, just in case?
Yeah, let me quickly answer that, and Jongyi and Daniel can add. Our plan is when we have the initial results for this year, maybe somewhere around early June, we will send out both those initial assessments and the technical note to the focal persons at the custodian agencies to check, to give feedback, and to validate the results. So I would say if you want to dig deeper into what's included and what's not in Annex 1, and you want to have feedback on that, you can do that during the broader consultation of all the custodian agencies. But I think for this task team, if you could look at the key kind of changes to the revised technical note itself and check the formula to make sure that everything kind of is correct, that would be good for this task team. So these two processes are somewhat separate.
Yeah.
Daniel. Yes, I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, sure. Just in our case, I'm in both groups. I'm focal point for these SDGs, and I'm member of this group. So yeah, this was a question. Thank you very much. It's clear.
Thanks, Katerina.
Thank you, Katerina. Are there any other comments or questions? So I guess I can give the floor to Daniel for the next or to Panya. I'm not sure for the next round. So
To Daniel.
Yeah.
Sure, I think it's a good segue to Katrina's question. Let me just share a couple of slides on timelines of what we're expecting and what we have done so far. So let me just put this in presentation mode. Yeah, just to get this started so that everybody has a timeline in place. With this working task team, we've been looking into mostly on methodology review from the beginning of the year until now. So this would be our last meeting for methodology work if there is no any clear kind of objection or maybe additional rework. But I think we try to include the comments and very valuable ones, actually, changing methodology in the classes. All those are done and just presented today. So the next phase would be to look into the draft progress chart. We've started looking into running some preliminary numbers, as Panya was mentioning. But if you remember, he mentioned we only can look into 103 indicators. But the targets, we need to now further look into custodian agency submission to fill the gaps and follow up with custodian agencies. So we have a more nuanced figure. So we're expecting to cover the 169 targets. This would take us 1 or 2 weeks of review time. And it's going to happen in May, which is a very short time we have. So once we have that, we'll look into working on the final version, which is in early June, trying to incorporate this into the progress report, which will come at the end of the month in June. In terms of, just to give you a visual thing of what's happening, we have this famous one, the 3 grouping ones, as Pania was mentioning it in the SDG's progress report and the parliamentary document. We would keep the 3 for the reasons mentioned already, and not to forget that it's a black and white release. But we will amend this to the glossy report. So these 3 breakdowns to 5. The same thing could happen to this chart here also, which also goes on to these 5 categories. So we will still have the gray, which will make it 6 colors. So the look you see for each target, for each goal, we will be doing the same traffic light colors, but a bit expanded, so it will not be a traffic light anymore. It's more to be 5. So this is where we are going. Once this is available, sometime in June for this task team and the custodian agency. So we'll send this out as we do with the SG progress report to the custodian agency to comment. But we'll have a very short window, as time is not on our side, as we need to release the report end of June before the HLPF. But just to give you an idea of where we are and what we're trying to do, these are the things that we wanted to set out to do with the task team. We've done the first chunk of it, and we're on the second chunk, which would quickly wrap up into the third chunk. Just for the discussion point, if you have anything with this timeline, any comments, would be happy to chat. Thank you. Back to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Daniel. Do you have any comment or question regarding this proposed timeline, and also on the way, let's say, this consultation should take place? So also, if you have any advice on how the consultation should be structured in this 1-2 weeks time frame proposed, please feel free to raise your hand and give UNSD some suggestions. Any questions, comments?
It looks like it's a very clear.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can I just emphasize again that once we send those package in, you will receive both the preliminary traffic lights, right? Similar to what Daniel just showed you in the next slide, and also the technical note, so that you could basically look at both. And this is where, like Ekaterina just mentioned, if custodian agencies have recommendations or suggestions on the data series that are used, this is where you can also return to us. But in the previous slide, Daniel, if you have any objections or comments or feedback, please get back to us with very clear rationale why. And also keep in mind that this assessment is based on the methodology that UNSD has proposed. So if your objection is based on the difference between our assessment and yours, which may be based on completely different methodology, I think that would be insufficient reason, right, to change our assessment. And also because of the tight timeline we're working on, we'll try to give you as much time to review and give us feedback as possible. But of course, that's not going to be an unlimited kind of time frame, right? So we will be looking at anywhere between 1 to 2 weeks for you to review and to get back to us. And by the end of that period, if we do not hear back, we will assume that there is agreement with the assessment. Yeah, so silence procedure. If you don't hear back, that means you're okay with the assessment. And this is a process that we will aim to do every year going forward. Thanks.
Thank you, Pana, for the clarification. So are there any questions, comments? All right. Then I think we could use the, I see Richard.
Sorry. One last one.
Please.
Just
Please
Pana,
go
I
ahead.
think it's good to go with a consistent approach as you're saying before, but will this task force be disbanded after that, or every 2 to 5 years will we come back and discuss whether the methodology is fit for purpose, or is this something that's going to be an annual thing? Just wanted to know. Okay. Because I'm sure after you do this one with this report, we'll learn some stuff. We'll learn some new things that maybe we all didn't catch. And how often will we come back and rediscuss the methodology? Over.
Good question. Maybe sorry to call on Yongyi, but that this is probably something that I mean the major work is now done, right? But if there are something that we have missed, or if there are some significant changes that custodian agencies or regional commissions want to propose, it may make sense to reconvene this task team again. But I think it will be on an ad hoc basis and not on like an annual or biannual basis. It will be on a needs-based kind of basis. But I want to also hear from Yongyi what your thoughts are on this.
Yes, Penny, I think you're correct. I think if we have a good feedbacks and also lesson learned, then we can call. I think maybe after, I don't know how long, then we can call some like ad hoc meeting and to reflect the lesson learned, and also probably will be good for, I don't know what's the future, the monitoring framework will be. So will be good to summarize the lesson learned for the future like progress assessment. So maybe at one point we can. Yeah, thanks.
All right. And I think this comment also connect to the last point now of this agenda. So here we could discuss on any future activity that this task team could perform. So if you have, let's say, any idea or suggestion for areas of work that this task team should cover or should develop, this is the space, let's say, to give advice and suggestions and propose your, let's say, your area of interest. So for sure, we will have another meeting of this task team around mid-June, so sometime in June. But yes, Richard.
Yeah, and I know this is a little getting ahead of myself, but I think after this methodology, it'll be great to see what the results are. But at some point, given the UN's push for leaving nobody behind and filling in, equity, it would be great to see how this methodology not just applies to the total prevalence, but when we start to look at different disaggregates, does the methodology break down in some way? It would be good to explore kind of what happens. There's some indicators that are disaggregated. I think of child mortality, I think of even anemia, and it would be great to see how the progress assessments methodology applies to disaggregates as well as the total population. Over.
Yes, of course. I mean, ideally, this approach should be applicable to any disaggregation dimension or disaggregated data series. But of course, it would be, yeah, very nice to test that. Daniel?
Yeah, I mean that's a very good comment, Richard. But when we look into such things, I think it's not going to be UNSD only. We need to have, you know, a custodian agency driving that show, especially on the disaggregation part, where you can, you know, you can get more data because we depend mainly on the global database. If that's not reported, how do we go into look into some of the disaggregations that are still in the process with custodian agencies, but not in the database? So yeah, that would be a collaborative work. I think it would cover a lot of things. And there is also already work with UN Women, who is really doing a clear, you know, work on that. And there's the report also on gender. So it would be interesting to do something similar on other thematic areas too. I think FAO has been doing some work on that too, yeah.
No, definitely. And I think like even like for this year's themes, I think multiple crises, if we can have some disaggregates that, you know, we could show about the most vulnerable, could we then say, are they the ones that are off track? But as I said, it's getting ahead of myself. But let's see, you know, once we have the data and we have the estimates in the database, it would be great to expand this methodology to try and fill in those gaps. Thank you.
Just a quick note, the reason we have a very, you know, compressed time for the SG report, which comes out late in June, but I think between, you know, the summer into September, there might be some time, you know, agencies could take a lead and trying to expand it a bit. And that would be very nice to do, I think.
Thank you, Richard. So are there any suggestions or ideas for future applications? Doesn't think so. So maybe we can pass to any other business. So if there are any other issues that you would like to discuss or yes, in this meeting, please feel free to intervene. Otherwise, we will call let's say a final meeting of this task team sometime in June. So after, let's say, the main results of the progress chart will be ready, and also after this period of consultation with custodian agency. So by then, I think we will be able also to hear about some lessons learned from UNSD. So I don't know, Panya, Daniel, do you want to discuss any other point?
No, yeah, Panya is back. Just to say thank you for all the comments and suggestions, which were very valuable. Which as you see in the technical note, we made some changes, really significant changes based on your comments. That's very much welcome, and hope to keep this discussion going. Panya, if you have some words, please.
Yeah, I also want to say, many thanks to everyone who has been very engaged in this process. It's been thoroughly enjoyable for UNSD to collaborate with the agencies and the regional commissions. We try as much as we could to incorporate your comments, but we are not able to incorporate all of them. Throughout the whole process, we stuck to the guiding principles that we set for ourselves at the beginning, and also kind of do some prioritization based on how feasible some of the comments are. That is not to say that your comments were neglected. We took all of them into account, and we continue to definitely both acknowledge your work in our own technical note and to encourage you at the regional commissions and the agencies level to continue with your own regional assessments and thematic assessments as well. And wherever we can, we will continue to provide spotlight to those complementary assessments. The global assessment is just one very small thing in the whole universe of assessments that we have. And to the extent possible, we will definitely acknowledge the other assessments that are done by the UN system as well. But thank you so very much for all your contribution. We will have one last meeting to look at the results together and to discuss any kind of major lessons learned, but that will be a couple of months from now. So look out for that invitation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So I think we can close this meeting. Many thanks to all of you. And I hope to see you to the next and last meeting of this task team in June. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Have a good one.
A good one.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Aida.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Alex.
everyone. Bye. Have a good
Thank you.
week.
You too.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.